Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to show 6 relatively new settings that all the pros have been using. You've probably seen Tfue and Mongrel and basically every other pro with new keybinds, higher FPS, and new colorblind modes, and you probably have no idea what the settings they changed are, why they changed them in the first place, or how you can turn them on and use them yourself. That's exactly what I'll be covering in this video, so you guys can be on a level playing field with these top pro players. I'll put some timestamps on the screen now for each setting that I cover in case you've already seen one, but I recommend watching the whole thing through anyways just for the tips and extra insight that I give. So let's jump into it, starting with the first new setting that all the best pro players have recently changed, their colorblind modes. I'm not sure who actually made this particular setting change popular. I think it may have been Mongrel, but in the past month or so, seemingly every pro player has changed their colorblind mode. Why? Well, it's pretty clear to see. Haha, get it? By changing your colorblind mode to Deuteranope and Tritanope, you can actually see into the storm much easier than without any colorblind mode on. With your default settings and no colorblind mode, trying to see and make out objects and people in the zone is difficult. It's not impossible, but compared to having a colorblind mode enabled, it's a night and day difference. Obviously, this is a huge advantage in game, and especially for competitive game modes like Arena and the World Cup. If you played in the World Cup qualifiers or have watched them online, you've probably seen how often games last until the very last circle that shrinks completely. Without a colorblind mode on, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage compared to someone who has the right one enabled. Even in regular public matches, how many times have you fought near the zone or even inside of it if someone's pushing you and holding you there? If you're looking to get that extra advantage, especially if you're trying to qualify for the World Cup, you need to have one of these two colorblind modes on. And before I get one of you guys saying,
"But Jarian, I've seen your streams and your other YouTube videos, and you don't use it."
The only reason that I don't is because a lot of people may think that they look ugly, and I don't want 100 little Timmies spamming my comment section asking me what colorblind mode I use. Plus, anytime I do play in the World Cup qualifiers with money on the line, you know for a fact that I have it on. Like I said before though, the two specific colorblind modes that you want to use are Deuteranope and Tritanope. Deuteranope makes the greens and blues much darker, as well as the purples more pink, as you can see from the guns here. You want to use anything above 5 for the most advantage on Deuteranope, and as you can see, it's much easier to see into the storm now. Everything is much clearer and more distinct in the zone when compared to the default settings with no colorblind mode. Mongrel uses Deuteranope 9, so almost maxed out. The only downside is it's a lot harder to see at night, as most of the colors are more washed out and darker. That's why a lot of pros are using the other colorblind mode that makes it much easier to see into the storm, Tritanope. Tritanope makes your blues and purples much lighter and your greens darker, so not only do you get the advantage of seeing into the storm, but your game doesn't look as ugly as it does with Deuteranope. Comparing Tritanope, which makes the storm much brighter and clearer, to non-colorblind modes, and you can see this really is an advantage. Obviously, it's preference, but Tfue, Dubs, and a bunch of other top pro players and streamers have opted into using Tritanope 10 instead of Deuteranope. In the end, as long as you're using Deuteranope or Tritanope with a strength above 3 or so, you'll be able to see into the storm much easier. So if you don't already have a colorblind mode turned on, do it right now. The second advanced setting option we'll look at is visual sound effects. This setting is found under the colorblind mode options in the accessibility settings tab. In the past, when you had on visual sound effects, your game would be muted, so there would be no sounds at all. Now you can use visual sound effects and have normal sounds on, so in theory, this should be an advantage. When someone shoots near you, there will be these big red effects that appear on your screen in the direction of where the shots came from, with a little gunfire icon in the middle of it. Footsteps have a white effect that comes up in the direction they're walking, along with a little footstep icon. There's also a greenish blue effect that comes up when there's a baller nearby, and then a big gold effect that signals the direction of where a chest is with a small chest icon. This is one of the main advantages I see with having visual sound effects on, especially if you're landing at a place like Mega Mall or Neo Tilted or one of the new areas. Chests are hard enough to locate and find by just sound alone already, so this could really help in those newly built areas on the map where you have no idea where the chests are and the chest sounds don't help. For just general gameplay, I think it can be useful. There were a lot of times in Tilted where I wouldn't hear anyone, but then a footstep icon would come up, which is pretty helpful. While visual sound effects won't help you with vertical audio, because in all honesty, nothing will with how bad it is, I do think in those mid and endgame fights where there's so much shooting and noises going off every second, it can be useful to locate someone who's actually close to you and trying to replace a wall. There's that one clip from Ghost Bizzle during ESL where he's spraying an AR and the sound is so bad that he doesn't hear someone pickaxing a fully built metal wall behind him. This would have really helped Bizzle there, and is one of the reasons some people are using it. Because you can now use it with normal sound on, you won't be at a disadvantage in terms of sound. You just get those extra visual cues of footsteps and other sounds you may not be able to distinctly hear. There are two big problems with visual sound effects though. First, it can kind of be annoying to see all those different effects constantly pop up on your screen. Endgames in World Cup and arena matches are already chaotic enough, so having extra stuff all over the place can definitely mess you up. The second and biggest problem is that it can severely hurt your FPS, especially when it's most useful in the late game. Late game moving zones destroy your FPS and make even the best PCs run at less than 80 frames, so I wouldn't advise competitive players to use visual sound effects when it's going to make your frames even worse. Overall though, try it out. I think it can be useful for certain situations, but I personally won't be using it. Third setting is something I found on Reddit from Raider464. If you guys haven't heard of him or seen the video he posted that blew up, then you're in for a treat. He posted this video to the competitive Fortnite subreddit, shout out to all my Reddit boys, and you guys can see why it gained so much traction. Raider says he's using 2 different edit keys as opposed to 1, so his edits are much cleaner and faster than if he was just using 1 edit key. When I first saw this, I honestly thought it was a macro, like it's so ridiculously fast that it looks like he's cheating, but he's not cheating at all. He simply came up with an ingenious way to edit faster and mastered it. The idea is pretty simple. All you need to do is go into your settings and bind your secondary edit keybind to a mouse button. When you normally edit, you press your edit keybind, so like F, then drag the edit pieces to make the edit, then confirm with the same finger on the same keybind, F again. What Raider does is he edits with his normal keybind, then he drags the pieces for edit, and then he confirms the edit with his mouse button. So instead of using the same finger to tap the edit key twice, he's using his edit key and then he uses his other hand, his right thumb on his mouse button to confirm the edit, so in theory it's quicker. Try pressing your edit key twice in a row and compare it to pressing your edit key and then mouse button at the same time. You can see how much faster it is because if you time it perfectly, you can press your mouse button basically right after you press your edit key. When I tried it out, it really did feel much quicker and smoother. You guys know that I'm all about optimal keybinds, so I fell in love with this idea because of how smart it is in theory. In practice though, there's a few concerns I have. First is the sheer amount of time it will take to master this and build new muscle memory for editing. We've all been editing with 1 key as opposed to 2 since we started playing Fortnite, so while obviously using 2 keys might be slightly faster, I'm not sure if the amount of practice and work it will take to get good with 2 keys makes up for the slightly faster edit speed. The other problem is that you may lose your edit scroll wheel reset trick, which I'll cover next. Apparently, if you have a mouse software that allows you to remap your mouse buttons, you can remap the mouse side button you want to use as your edit keybind to your main edit key, and this way you don't need to bind it in your Fortnite settings like I showed. A problem inside this problem though is that not a ton of people have an open mouse side button that they can just freely use and give up. Me personally, I won't be using it. I think it's a really cool trick that does have its benefits. Like obviously Raider should keep using it because of how fast his edits are, but for 99% of people who have been using 1 edit key, it's probably not worth your time switching to 2. What is worth your time though is learning the scroll wheel edit reset trick. This is not a new trick by now, but I know a ton of people who don't use it or they don't understand how to set it up. And with basically every pro player and good player in Fortnite abusing this trick, you should definitely learn it. You're going to want to go into your settings, then down to the reset building edit keybind, and change the secondary keybind to scroll wheel up or down. I have mine on scroll wheel down. Then go to your edit keybind and change the secondary keybind to the same thing you changed reset building edit to, so I'll make this also scroll wheel down. Now, instead of pressing your edit key, then right clicking to reset the blocks, and pressing your edit key again to confirm it, you can just look at the wall or build you want to reset and scroll down twice, or scroll really hard once, and it will instantly reset. This is extremely useful for pretty much all scenarios and all times of the game when you need to reset and edit. You can also use it to outplay people like I showed in one of my advanced tips and tricks videos by editing on your opponent, then quickly resetting the edit when they try to shoot so you block their shot, and then you get a free shot. Scroll wheel edit reset has so many different types of uses and outplays that you're either a clown or on controller if you don't have it enabled by now. Second to last advanced setting is another scroll wheel trick. Recently there's been an annoying bug when you pick up items where if you look away quickly, the gun or item you're trying to pick up won't actually get picked up. Even when you look at it straight on, it will sometimes hold to swap instead of just pick up the item. What you can do, and what a ton of pros including Tfue have recently done, is make the scroll wheel you don't use for scroll wheel edit reset, set it to your secondary interact keybind. So since I use scroll wheel down for my scroll wheel edit reset, I'm going to use scroll wheel up to pick up items, then go into your settings and turn tap to search / interact on. Now you'll have literally zero problems picking up items when you use scroll wheel. I made my scroll wheel my main interact key, which I believe Tfue did too recently. If you do this, you free up your original interact key, which is usually a useful keybind like F or E. That's why I now edit with E, which is so much better than my old edit keybind. Just make sure that you guys have tap to search on, or else it won't work and you won't be able to open chests, so don't forget that step. The last advanced setting I'll cover is the multi-threaded optimization setting. This is basically the first trick that I showed in my FPS boost tricks video, where you made a shortcut to run Fortnite that would get your CPU to use more threads while playing. This will boost your FPS if your processor has a lot of cores, which is basically the way Epic describes it. The drawback is that if you have a lower end PC, this can cause your game to stutter and lose FPS. I think everyone should turn it on and see how it affects their FPS though. This should boost most people's FPS, especially if you have multiple cores in your processor. So if you have above an i3 or a Ryzen 5 or better, this will definitely help out. If you turn it on and you see it hurts your FPS and your game feels worse, just turn it off, but I think it will be beneficial for mostly everyone to have it on. So if these advanced settings helped you guys out, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Thank you to everyone who's using code Jarian. Remember to keep sending me pics for a shout out, and I'll have more details in the next video for the Ducky12 mini giveaway. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.